The southern coastline near Albany is a wild and beautiful place. No plants can grow tall in the strong sea winds. Bullbanksias grow 40 feet high in the nearby forest, 2 feet only on this headland. The pitcher plants grow in swamps. Found only in this southwest corner, these tiny jugs trap insects and other small animals. These are then digested by the plant. The lid of the pitcher is not to stop insects getting out, but to stop rain getting in. Each pitcher is a leaf changed to the shape of a jug. In the bottom of each is about ½ inch of liquid. For insects, it provides an attractive drink, so attractive that many of them drown in it. The pitcher is a kind of stomach. Here the plant digests its victims and the walls of the jug absorb the food for use by the plant.
We came to Albany to see a bird which had come back from the dead. This is Harley Webster, Albany schoolteacher, who re-found the noisy scrub bird after it had been missing since 1889. The southwest bush is the home of many strange animals like this honey possum. Harley had recorded the call of the noisy scrub bird. Now he played it back to bring the bird towards us. And here it is. An occupied nest has never been found. Harley showed me the unfinished nest found in the area. It was beautifully made with a smooth lining inside a kind of paper mache to keep the eggs snug and warm. We decided to try and trap a living bird for scientific examination. The bird lives in territories of a few dozen acres. Harley found a territory which was long and thin. We cut a narrow path across this scrub bird property. Along this path we put a very fine net used by scientists for catching birds alive. Walkie-talkies kept our party in contact. Harley watched by the net. Then we started to beat the scrub. Moving in line, we shouted, hit the low bushes, and did all we could to frighten any birds forward. We knew a pair lived in the territory because we had heard the calls of the male. The scrub was thick, a good hiding place. The honey possum watched drowsily. We struggled through the thickets near the net. There's a bird in the net. It must not escape. Then came the cry, Atracornis. This is the scientific name of the noisy scrub bird. You can imagine how excited we were. A bird lost for nearly 80 years, now back from the dead. We were the first to ever see the bird close and to actually hold a living bird in our hands. Here at last was the sweet-voiced singer that some have called the Australian nightingale. To all of us, it was the most exciting moment of our bird watching. The scrub bird, with its long tail and short, rounded wings, is a creature of the thick coastal scrubs. It is a scientific mystery, with its closest relative being a lyrebird. This ring-tailed possum is a creature of the night. Now it was time for the scientific record. We had trapped a live bird to gather the information which could not be obtained from a museum specimen.
The noisy scrub bird is an insect eater and finds its food on the forest floor. Once it lived near Perth and around the coast to the east of Albany. Today, the only colony of birds so far found lives at Two People Bay. The state government has set aside 13,000 acres of this country as a wildlife reserve. Plans are now being discussed to shift a proposed town site to the other side of the bay. Everything will be done to make sure this last colony survives. The wildlife reserve will also save other rare kinds of animals and plants. So far, only naturalists have seen and admired the bird. When the reserve has its own ranger, members of the public will also be able to see and hear it. Like the lyrebird, it not only has its own beautiful song, but can mimic other birds.
Our last task was to put a numbered band on this bird so we would be able to recognise it again. Then it was time to let the bird go. I filmed it in slow motion. So we left the bird to its territory. We were content. We had heard, seen and held it. The long-lost, sweet-voiced singer of the bush, the noisy scrub bird.
This extraordinary rock structure is one of the most photographed pieces of rock in Australia. Wave Rock is found a few miles from the wheatbelt town of Hyden. Hyden is no different from most of the other small towns of the area, yet this rock has made it world famous. Today it's on the regular tourist track for visitors travelling north from Albany or south from Perth. What made this strange rock wave? There's no certain answer. Through the whole of the wheatbelt, such rocks heave above the surface. Some are only a few acres in size, some are hundreds of acres. Some are made of granite, but most are of a rock called gneiss. Gneiss looks like granite, though it shows bands and streaks where the minerals lie in layers. Such rocks have a thick growth of bush around their edges. In the early days, most of them were set aside as reserves. It was a pleasant place where pioneers could go camping with plenty of game to provide food. Today they're favoured spots to take the children for a picnic.
We decided to have a trial of our nature walkabout by visiting the southwest. My family had never seen the rock and they found it most exciting. Karen ran up as high as she could.
We left Wave Rock and travelled westwards to a wildlife sanctuary near Katanning. Here some friends of ours had set aside about 30 acres of their farm to hold native animals instead of sheep. Once, this grey kangaroo was common in the bushlands of Katanning. Mr. and Mrs. Neville Beck visit their sanctuary every day. It has a high fence to prevent animals getting out or getting in. In slow motion, a grey kangaroo is a beautiful sight. Emus also live in the sanctuary. The mother and her joey bound across the cleared paddock to the cover of the trees. In slow motion, this huge boomer shows a kangaroo at speed. Grey kangaroos can grow to 7 feet in height. It's amazing to think a large animal like this was born only an inch in length. It stays in its mother's pouch feeding on milk for about 9 months. Then it's ready to look after itself.
From this sanctuary we moved north to Narrogin. Most of the original wildlife of the area was destroyed by the farmer's plough. With the bush gone, the animals died of starvation. The plough always kills more quickly than the gun. Instead of kangaroos, fine cattle now graze on these paddocks. Nearby, some of the original bush has been kept as a state forest. In these forests and in national parks, the wildlife can survive. Here is a malleefowl, a bird which builds an incubator for the eggs. The father bird does all the work of building this nest, scratching up a huge mound of leaves and soil in the winter. In spring, a central nesting chamber is prepared, and here the eggs are laid. All the ground around the nest is scraped clean of leaves and soil to make the high mound. Even when I disturb him, he moves off reluctantly.
Vin clears away the soil to find the eggs. The mother bird may lay up to 35 eggs in a season, though only 6 to 8 eggs will be in the nest at the one time. 1 egg is laid each week, and after 7 weeks the first egg hatches, leaving space for a new one. Each egg weighs half a pound, and 35 eggs laid by a mother bird would be 5 times her own weight. No wonder father has to do all the work of making sure the eggs hatch. To do this, he takes the temperature of the mound each morning. He uses his beak to test the sand. If the nest is too hot, he opens the mound to let out heat, and also helps by scraping in cool soil. Later in the summer, when the heat from decaying leaves falls off, the malleefowl opens the mound during the daytime and lets the sun warm the eggs. In the afternoon, warm soil is scraped in again to keep the mound warm during the night. Each day the father works hard to make sure the temperature is kept at 92 degrees. Each week, mother comes to lay another egg. When the baby hatches, it pushes its way up through the sand and walks off. The first day it hatches, it can also fly, so it can look after itself.
While I had been measuring the eggs, Karen had been searching for specimens. She found this pupal case sticking out of the ground showing where a wood moth had emerged some time before. The malleefowl is an example to all husbands, working hard each day from early spring to autumn. It is marvellous to know that even today, this bird still builds its nest within 100 miles of Perth. In the nearby forest, Carol was busy looking for another animal. These gum trees are called wandus, and wandu forest today shelters a remarkable assemblage of animals. A ground goanna pauses in its hunting. Carol finds something exciting. On a rock outcrop were a number of small stone circles. These circles of stones were made by the Aborigines who once lived here. Today they all live in towns, and there's nobody left to tell us why the circles were made. Certainly they would have been important in ceremonies. Perhaps it was part of the ceremony to make sure emus would be plentiful, or kangaroos, or goannas. For these lizards also made good food for natives.
We were searching for something more interesting than goannas. We were searching for a beautiful little marsupial called the numbat. It was once found over much of southern Australia, but today is only common in this southwest corner. We found the nest of a small wallaby called a woylie. The numbat lives in hollow logs during the night. It also hides in these during the day if disturbed. So we searched on through the forest. Hollow logs are dark places, so we carried a torch to see if anybody was at home. Success at last!
I checked the log. Yes, the animal was at home. I hurried off to get my hide, camera and a notebook. I put up a hide near the log to film the animal when it came out. This is the only way to get good pictures of bush animals. They must not know you are there. The numbat is one of the most beautiful of marsupials. It looks very much like a squirrel, both in size and in the way it moves. Numbats are cautious. Goannas are dangerous enemies.
There are always plenty of logs in which to hide. As the numbat moves from the first log, it quickly finds another. Its whole territory is covered with such hiding places, some better than others. The best log of all is used as a permanent home, and a cosy nest of grass is made deep in its shelter.
From the safety of the log, the numbat peers out. The strong wind made my tent flap, and the canvas covered my camera lens for a moment. As it finds food by day, the numbat must watch enemies from the sky and from the ground. These goannas are common throughout the forest and are just the right shape to crawl up a hollow log in search of numbats. The numbat has no sharp teeth, and although it can run much faster than a goanna, inside the log it is trapped. However, it uses its hindquarters as a plug for the burrow, and the goanna cannot get a grip with its teeth.
Vin decided to take a hand and get rid of this nuisance. The important point about catching goannas is to grip the tail firmly, then lift the reptile off the ground. Then it's helpless. Although goannas are not poisonous, a bite can be painful. The numbat is safe in another log. Meanwhile, another numbat lies sunning itself. Many animals are cold and stiff in the morning and need a little sun to get their blood warm. Numbats feed mostly on termites. The branches which fall from the trees provide food for termites, and the termites are food for the numbats. The strong feet tear away at the hard clay walls of the termite colony. The long tongue flicks up the insects. The long nose is useful in probing the tunnels of the termite city. The termites feed entirely on dead wood in this forest. The workers search for food near the surface, while deep in the nest is the queen. She is a huge egg-laying machine, producing millions of eggs in her lifetime. Workers and soldiers guard her from any harm. Should old age slow down egg production, smaller supplementary termite queens take over and build up the egg supply. A termite colony must have plenty of workers and plenty of soldiers to guard it.
Termite soldiers cannot guard against enemies as big as numbats. Steadily the numbat works its way through the colony, using its powerful claws to break open the mound. The beautiful fur of the animal shines in the sunlight in shades of grey, brown and a rich red. Being a marsupial, the babies are born small, naked and helpless. We were fortunate to find a mother with 4 young. The mother does not have a pouch like most marsupial mothers. The babies must cling to the teats. When bigger, the mother will leave them in a snug nest where they will feed on her milk until big enough to catch termites for themselves. So long as this Wandoo forest remains, the numbat will live on. If we want our wildlife to survive, we must make sure that enough national parks are set aside to save the wonderful animals and plants which live in Australia today.